You cannot write a more tragic story. It's impossible, technically. Why? Well, because it's a story of the aggregation of everything that people are afraid of. So there was no death more painful than crucifixion. Plus, your best friend betrayed you into it. Plus, your people turned against you. Plus, they're led by a tyrant who doubts truth. Plus, you're a victim of the Roman Empire. Plus, you're completely innocent. Plus, everybody knows it.
Hi, I'm Dr. John Griffiths, and today we're looking at Jordan Peterson's understanding of Jesus' death. You see, Jordan Peterson a while back went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he spent a minute describing how he understands Jesus' death as the most tragic death there ever was.
So Jung thought that the Passion story was archetypal because it's a limit story. You cannot write a more tragic story. It's impossible, technically. Why? Well, because it's a story of the aggregation of everything that people are afraid of. So there was no death more painful than crucifixion. That's why the Romans invented it. It was to punish political miscreants.
Now, Jordan Peterson here states two things. He states that the crucifixion was the most painful death known in Jesus' time, and it was invented by the Romans. Now, unfortunately, both of these things are wrong. Actually, the Persians invented the crucifixion, and the crucifixion was, as a method of execution, was then adopted by the Greeks and the Romans. So the Romans didn't invent crucifixion. Moreover, crucifixion wasn't the most painful death. There are much more painful ways to die. So why did Jesus die on a cross? Well, it's actually important to understand this in light of the Old Testament. You see, Deuteronomy states that anyone hung on a tree is cursed. And so Jesus, by dying on a cross or a tree, takes on Israel's covenant curses upon himself. Jesus becomes cursed so that Israel can be freed. You see, by trying to portray the death of Jesus as the most tragic death there was, actually, Jordan Peterson is taking it out of the story that it's embedded in, the story of the Bible, and trying to let it stand on its own as the most tragic death. So Jesus' death is not the most tragic death, it's not the most painful death, but it is the most important. It is the most necessary because it is the one that takes away Israel's covenant curses.
That sucks. That's pain, man. Plus, you know it's coming. That's part of the story. Plus, your best friend betrayed you into it.
Now, this is just wrong. Judas wasn't Jesus' best friend. He was part of the 12 disciples, but he wasn't even in the three most closest disciples of Jesus, which are Peter, James, and John.
Plus, your people turned against you. Plus, they're led by a tyrant who doubts truth. Plus, you're a victim of the Roman Empire. Plus, you're completely innocent. Plus, everybody knows it. Plus, they choose a criminal to be released from this experience instead of you, even though they know he's a criminal and they know you're innocent. So, and you're young, and you've done no wrong, and all you've done is help people.
Now, my problem here with what Jordan Peterson has said here, a lot of this is accurate to what we see in the Gospels. The problem is that it's only describing one side of the story. That is, it's portraying Jesus as a victim. But what we see throughout the Gospels is that, Jesus knows he's going to die. He actually, halfway through his ministry, starts to predict his own death. He says, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'm going to be handed over to the religious leaders, and I am going to be executed. Jesus seems to know that he's going to die in Jerusalem, and yet he goes. And then secondly, when Jordan Peterson says that Jesus did nothing wrong, well, actually there were a few actions that Jesus did which led to his death. In particular, his action in the temple where he clears out the money changers and he quotes from Jeremiah 7. This is the moment that the Synoptic Gospels state that the religious leaders of Jerusalem decide to kill Jesus. So, with all of this in mind, Jesus isn't just an innocent victim. Jesus knows what is going to happen in Jerusalem when he gets there, but still goes. He goes into the temple and does his prophetic demonstration, again, knowing what will happen. So he's not this ultimate victim. No, he knows what's going on, and he knows the wider significance of his death. That is, he's taking on Israel's covenant curses upon himself. Now, if you want to learn more about the crucifixion of Jesus, I put a link down below to N.T. Wright's The Day Revolution Began. I think this is a great book that helps the everyday Christian understand the meaning and significance of Jesus' death. And hey, if you think I've been unfair to Jordan Peterson here, hey, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear feedback on my review of his position. Now, if you want to learn more about the theological significance of Jesus' death, I've actually done a video on that, which you can access here.